So while I am watching the waiting room, if you could introduce yourself in the chat, in the comments, please. Let us know where you're zooming in from, how many kids you have, and just their ages, and we can get to know each other in the chat. If you guys don't know, it's at the bottom of your screen. If you're on your phone, you could probably hit the dots and you'll see chat. Okay. So I will watch the waiting room for a little bit longer because I'm usually always late, and then we'll just get right into this. So introduce yourself in the chat. Let's not look at each other awkwardly like the Brady Bunch, right? Okay. California. See, Heather, I knew I had to have you on here. We've got a huge tribe in California. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to keep watching this and I just don't want to get distracted. Yes, homeschool moms have ADHD. But just if you're just zooming in right now, introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're zooming in from. Let us know how many kids you have. I am really, really excited just to lead this Zoom for y'all, and I am recording it. So we will have this for a replay for anyone that has to get off or anything like that. All right. So I think it's good. It's like 1 minute in and I'll keep watching the waiting room. So if you see me get sidetracked, that's what it is. So if you guys don't know who I am Jackie. I have 4 boys. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about myself and my homeschool journey. I'm extremely passionate about this. And that is why I want to have this Zoom. This Zoom is open to anyone who wants to come on it, because I really believe in homeschool, and not just homeschool. I believe in just mother intuition, and whatever your choices are for you, I just want you to listen to them. So first thing, I'm going to open it up with something here, and I'm going to say to you, and I'm still watching that waiting room, so bear with me if I get sidetracked. There are only 2 reasons you shouldn't homeschool your children. Okay. Maybe some of y'all are like, if you don't have a degree, whatever you're thinking, it's not that. There are only 2 reasons that you should never homeschool. 1, you have 0 desire, and that's your prerogative. And number 2 is you don't like your children. Now, I'm not saying you don't yell at your children, lose your patience on your children. Hi, I do that. I'm talking about you just don't like them. Okay. So those are the only 2 reasons why you should not homeschool. If you're on the Zoom, you're already thinking about it or you're intrigued by it. So your ability to homeschool has nothing, 0 to do with having a teaching degree. I just want you guys to know that from the get-go, okay? So if you like your kids and you have a little bit of a desire, you can homeschool. I said it, all right? So people who are just getting in here, introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're zooming in from and how many kids you have, their ages, just so we can get to know you. But I specifically have my best friend speaking with me tonight. Heather, if you can wave, I don't know if they'll see you. You'll see her and she'll speak later on. And here's the reason why. Heather and I are best of friends, but we are completely opposite when it comes to homeschool for various reasons. Her daughters are older. She has daughters. I have sons. She started a little bit later than I did with the homeschool game. And we just have different styles of it. So I'm excited. She's also from California, and I know a lot of y'all are in California, so she'll be able to speak to you guys about that. But we do it directly opposite of each other. And we want to show you that anyone can do this. Heather worked 2 jobs and homeschooled. Heather is also a single mom, which she never uses that as like a woe is me thing. But people think like, oh, Jackie has this really supportive husband, and if he's listening, I love you, boo. He does this much of our homeschool, and he works 6 days a week. So as much as people may think that if your husband is very involved or into it, or if you're not married, that you can't do this, you can do it. Because even those of us that are married, we pretty much do it all. So Heather will be talking to you guys later on in this, and I'm really excited about that, again, because we do it differently, and she's in California, and I know so many of you guys are in California, and I wanted to speak to you guys specifically. So my background with homeschool, really fast. I was raised in the public school system. I went to private school for a little bit, and my husband, public school. So we are not Amish. In fact, I had 0 desire to homeschool my children. It was my husband's idea, and I laughed at him. And the more and more I looked into it, the more intrigued I was by it. First of all, kindergarten, if you don't know this, and again, I am not your doctor or your prescriber. I always say that on like our wellness Zooms. I am not your boss and I am not your lawyer. So you need to Google, yes, Google, or DuckDuckGo. Everything I say to you, look it up for yourself on your whatever state you're in, because every single state is completely different. So I might tell you something and Heather's going to say something. They're opposite. Homeschool laws are a huge deal to our family. We would never move anywhere that had bad laws. Same thing with, you know, guns and all the other things, but that's a Zoom for another day. So I was raised in school. I had zero desire to do it. The more I looked into it, I was really pulled towards it. And kindergarten is not a required grade in almost all states. And people don't realize that. And I really, as my son I'm a homeschool mom, got closer and closer to school age, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if he's ready for this. I wasn't feeling like my intuition was talking to me. Okay. And that's when I really realized like, this is something that I think I need to do. And then I found out that kindergarten wasn't even a requirement. So I was like, oh, okay, we're going to keep looking into this. So, my sons have never been in conventional schooling. They've never been in daycare. I don't say that like, oh, woe is me. I'm just telling you, like literally from day one, they've just always been here. Okay. And so we've done everything from co-ops to classical conversations. I can put all this in our chat at the end of this if you have any questions about that. We've done box curriculum. So that's going to look like where you can go to Sunlight or My Father's World. We try to keep everything from a Christian worldview for us, but if that is not your belief system, you can surround it on anything, what you believe, which I love. You don't have indoctrination happening. And so I've done all of those. And here's the thing for us now in this place we are in our life, it does not work for us. We've done classical conversations. And now I didn't tell you how old my sons are. We have 5th grader, we have a 4th grader, we have a kindergartner and a 3-year-old who thinks he's in 6th grade. So that's 11, 9, 7. Yes, my son is 7 doing kindergarten because we can talk about that later on. But and then my 3-year-old, obviously pre-K, or he listens in on their lessons. So right now we do a combo. We do a combination of all different curriculums. So I use one of my favorites right now is, gosh, I wrote this down somewhere for you guys at the end. Hold on. I knew I was going to do this. Hold on. The Good and the Beautiful. We use reading eggs for reading, and believe it or not, that actually goes up to age 12. So if you have someone, which we're going to answer Q&A at the end, that I wrote down some questions, but if you have a child that's struggling with reading, it's a computer game and it's amazing. And even for those of us that have kids in school, I would say use that for especially boys if they're struggling with reading eggs. It's like a subscription, really affordable, and have them refresh on that all the time. And it's games, so they don't feel like they're learning, but they are. And then we use Tuttle Twins. We love the Tuttle Twins so much. They have a YouTube channel that's free. And we also use a lot of Khan Academy, KHAN Academy. I think that's how they spell it, I hope. But again, I will put this on a post somewhere for you guys. And that's free. So I take bits and pieces from a bunch of different places and I make their curriculum right now. Is that for everyone? No. Sometimes the box curriculum is going to work, and like how Heather does it might work for you. And that's why we're going to have her talk later on in here. But yeah, so that is just how I wanted to introduce myself and let you guys know just like my background on this and where I'm at. Another weird thing that we do that Heather does not do, and she'll talk about her style, is we homeschool year round. And you're like, are you a tiger mom? No. I'm actually borderline an unschooler, but it took a lot of years of being comfortable in my ability to be the primary educator of my sons for me to feel that way. So in our state of South Carolina, again, every state is different. We have to homeschool 180 days. That's it. 180 days. That does not mean consecutively. It does not mean the same schedule as regular school, however you want to call it. And that's it. So that's where I have found I have multiple businesses. We love to travel. And the pressure of trying to fit teaching my dyslexic son how to read was too much. And with all these other ventures I have, I realized if I do this year round, 3 to 4 days, it's so much better. And that's what works for us. But again, homeschool collectively, all it really should mean to you when you see someone that homeschools, I think a lot of us have broke that stigma. I definitely don't. When people meet me, they don't like categorize me as a homeschool mom, whatever that may be. I think people think they look like they wear bonnets or something, don't have TVs, but homeschool, all it means is freedom. And you're going to hear that tonight. And that's why we're having this Zoom. So when it comes to homeschool education, it can feel risky to diverge from societal norms, of course. But in reclaiming childhood and reclaiming motherhood, we've got to get back to trusting our instincts. Okay. And that is what the whole, for me, Raising Cubs mission is wherever you're at, I don't care if we agree on politics or medicine or whatever it is I just want mothers to go back to their God-given instincts. And the thing is what's best for our children is not what society says. Okay. It's not. And if you feel called to do this, do it. And lean on communities like this and ask, and Heather's going to talk about it, get on the Facebook groups and hey, do you guys know, about homeschool and whatever? Like someone asked me on my Instagram, and which we're going to answer at the end, they said, where do I even start? If you have a smartphone or the World Wide Web, you just get on it and you start asking questions, obviously by your state. So we have to believe our children are not products to be measured, but souls to be set free. And that's from one of my favorite books, The Call of the Wild and Free, Homeschool. I'm going to link all of this while Heather's talking in the chat, so you guys can go check out my favorite books. And you absolutely have what it takes, like I already said, to be the primary educator of your children or your child. You are your child's best teacher. Okay. And I'm just going to tell you from the bottom of my heart, if you think that I'm a perfect mom and I have patience and I don't scream at my children or have bad days during homeschool, I do all the time. And you know what? So do your kids' teachers if they're in regular school. If you don't think that they have a bad day and they come to school, and God bless the good teachers that are left, and they're trying to educate 25 students on all different levels with all different backgrounds, they're having bad days too. So don't think that like they're immune if they're sitting in a desk at school either. Okay. You are not going to be the number one teacher because you have a PhD. It's not going to be because you have a perfect homeschool room. It's not going to be because you're really beautiful. It's not going to be because you have endless patience or a supportive husband or a really good job and a lot of money in the bank. You are your child's best teacher because you are the one who knows them best. No one knows those kids or kid better than mama. Okay. They live in us, then they come outside of us, then we feed them from our breast or a bottle. I don't care which one. We're not here to have mom guilt. No one knows them better, which makes us actually the best person fit for the job. And am I telling you, again, it's going to be easy? No. Am I telling you, you're not going to lose patience when you're looking at a direct twin of you that has all your bad characteristics? If God has showed me anything, is all my sin in my children, because gosh, they're like me. Okay. And it's hard, but you are the one that knows them best. And what happens is we lead by example. So some of my best teaching moments with my children, and I talk about this all the time on my Instagram, is character. For us, we focus on character first, which is Bible and all those things. Like I'm saying all the way up to probably 10. So if you think that you start your child at 5, and we can touch on this at the end, and then to 10 years old, those 5 years are so crucial in character training and in teaching them hard life lessons. And so that's what I focus on solely. Do they do math? Of course. Do they do science? Yes. But those years are so vital for our homeschool style. So I'm going to read from this book that I will link for you guys, because I know this comes up a lot, and it's the Call of the Wild and Free. I have these books, and you can see how like stained and disgusting this is. I have to go back to these books often because I have bad days. I have bad mom days. I feel inadequate. I cry to my husband, I cry to my best friend. And, you know, you have those days because what's more important than your children, and we don't want to be messing them up. So I keep these books out and I read them often, what I'm going to talk to you about, because they inspire me, they encourage me, and they remind me what the heck I'm doing this for, why I'm doing this. And again, faith for me is like number one now. Okay. So homeschool requirements by state. Okay. Let's start with the basic legal requirements. In the United States, 39 of the 50 states have absolutely zero requirements for homeschooling parent qualifications, okay? That means you can homeschool with a college degree, a PhD, or not even as much as a high school diploma in those states. That leaves only 11 states: Georgia, New Mexico, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia. Those states, which I'm in South Carolina, they require you to have a GED or a high school diploma. And so this can feel both liberating and scary at the same time. And then she says, I mean, does the government really entrust the education of future generations to any uneducated parent? The answer is yes. Yes, it does. Freedom is an inherent right of every American, and for good or for bad, parents are able to choose how and where their children are educated. Homeschooling isn't for everyone, but it's accessible to anyone. Homeschooling is not only a right, but also a responsibility. It takes intention and commitment to giving our children an individualized quality education. And this is a responsibility that homeschoolers don't take lightly. Don't be intimidated by the notion of it. As a parent, you already hold the highest form of responsibility. If you can parent, you can homeschool. So I wanted to read that because a lot of people ask me all the time. They say, do you have to have a teacher's degree? Like and it's so hard for me. And that's why I want to start leading these Zooms at least quarterly, if not monthly, on different topics, because I can't answer everyone. And when I see a question come up a lot, I'm like, okay, there's a need and we need to have a Zoom. So here we are. So I think that is all I have for, I'm going to obviously bring it over to Heather. Actually, no, one more thing. So sorry, guys. It's homeschool, not school at home. If you are already like, if you have school age children, or I don't know your circumstance, like you're pulling them out, or you have an infant on your breast right now, if you can start this journey off, which I struggle with this, not trying to make your homeschool look like conventional school, you will be set free. Because so much mom guilt and so much of my bad days are because I'm trying to squeeze an 8-hour, which it's not. Clearly, every state is different. We're only required in South Carolina to do an hour and a half of school, by the way, which you'd be so impressed with how much time is wasted in school. These kids are sitting in desks for 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours. You can get through, I can get all of my homeschool in under 2 hours with my 4 kids. So, you know, but that's another side note for another day. But if you can go into your school this year or next year or in 5 years with your kids, not trying to make it look like regular schooling, you will be 20 steps ahead of me when I started my journey. And like I said, I had my boys in a co-op at first because I doubted my ability. And that's amazing too. Every state has millions of co-ops. And what my co-op looked like was they had tutors and they would go and be around other kids because everyone was always in my ear. They're like, they need to have socialization, which that's another lie. You'd have to lock your kids up in a closet for them not to be social. The weird kids are the weird kids, whether they're homeschooled or they're in regular school. Okay. Can I get an amen with that? Your kids are going to be like you. They're going to be like their brothers and their dad and their parents and whoever. Okay. They will not be weird. Well, I'm weird, so my kids might be weird, but you get what I'm saying. So when we try to make real school, which homeschool is real school, and real teachers is all we've known from our upbringing, we start taking those societal pressures and we try to squeeze them like a circle into a square hole with our children. And that's where you're going to feel frustrated and burn out with this journey. And here's another little hack is my homeschool style changes every single year. That's the beauty of it. If I have a lot going on with when I was pregnant, we took 6 months off because I was sick. That is the freedom of homeschool. And my kids thrived, by the way. They were struggling with reading. We took time off and then they started reading. That's how life works. It's amazing. So sometimes you need a schoolroom and sometimes you don't need a schoolroom. Is it a requirement? No. And Heather, you should probably open it up with talking about how, because when I was her friend and I was homeschooling and she wasn't, and then, current events in California, she's like, okay, I guess I'm homeschooling now, which we don't need to touch on. And I remember she had the whiteboard and she had everything set up, which I have a homeschool room right now. Why? Because I have 4 very active boys and I need them to shut off the distractions, and they know, like, when we come in here we mean business, and then we walk in and out. The boys go in and out of the homeschool room, by the way. They love it in there. They play games in there, but for me it works. But Heather will talk more about that you don't need to have that. So I think that's all I have until we do Q&A at the end. Heather, it's on to you. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Zoom, and we're so glad you're here. I see a bunch of you over in the chat saying where you're located. Feel free. This is a safe place. You can put your Instagram handles and connect and follow each other. If you see someone that you're near and that's already homeschooling, there might be somebody here who can help you with getting started on your journey. So use the chat to connect while I'm talking. I am in our 3rd year of homeschooling. So my daughters, Avery and Valerie, are 14 and 12. So I have a high schooler and a middle schooler, even though, like, I guess with homeschool, it's kind of a little bit more fluid. I've learned that with the program that we're in. They don't really have set grade levels. It's more of their learning level. So we are doing a program. Well, first of all, let me back up to their background. So they both, since they were 3 years old, went to private Christian school, and I would put them in their little uniforms, drive them, drop them off in school. They would do K3, K4, and then K5 kindergarten, and then they went all the way through. I believe they were 3rd grade and 6th grade when we moved over to homeschool a few years ago. So the reason why we were doing that is because I grew up going to private Christian school, and my mom would drop us off and go to work. And so I feel like that is just what I did because it was what I saw. And we tend to mirror in a lot of things in life. We mirror what we are used to and what feels natural and comfortable to us. And one of the reasons why we're doing these little, whatever you want to call it, empowerment sessions, is that we want you to, like Jackie said, trust your instincts and question why you do the things you do. Just to think outside the box and know that it's okay, even if your family thinks that you're odd because you are the black sheep stepping outside. Everybody else is doing this, but you're doing something different. You need to be around people and surrounded by people like this community who will cheer you on no matter what your choices are. And that's what we're here for. If you decide that you're going to do homeschool, we want to be here to say, yes, you can do it, and to cheer you on through doing that. So when I first had thought about the possibility of homeschooling, I was 100% against it. I did not want to do it. I am a single mom, but my girl's dad is very involved. We have 50-50 custody, and we share 50-50 of homeschool responsibilities and their education. So that can also be a little bit tricky because of our interesting situation there. We don't always agree on how much math the girls should do and things like that. But some of that just doesn't really matter as much as that they're with their parents. So I think it's really important just to let go of some of that. Like if you and your spouse are disagreeing on some things, those are not hills to die on, because if your kid does a little bit more or a little bit less of a certain subject, they are going to be just fine. And I feel like that's one of the things that has been really hard in the adjustment period. So when I first started homeschooling my daughters, I was working and commuting, and I very quickly had to transition to working from home, which was also a different thing because we would leave our home in the morning perfectly clean, and I'd pack the lunches and take them, and then we would come home at night and our house would still be perfectly clean. And now we are actually all living in our home, which is a very different thing because now you have distractions and piles of laundry, and I'm working and they're doing school. But it's such a blessing in so many ways that you get to actually be with your family and with your children. And if any of you here are currently working and taking your kids to daycare, that is awesome too, because they get to go and you get to reconnect at the end of the day. And it's exciting to have that time apart, where when you're always together and you don't have that time to reconnect, any of you who have done that know that it can be a challenge. Like, we'll just be honest here that when Jackie was saying, if you don't like your kids, there's always a time where we're like, we really don't all like each other, and that's okay. And it's good for us to all have separate spaces. But I transitioned very quickly to working from home, 2 jobs, so that I could support the lifestyle of being able to be with my children at home. But also the homeschool program that we're doing is a little costly because we're doing it through a co-op and using the Classical Conversations curriculum, and we have a tutor that we use. So I have chosen to do some of those things to maintain some of the structure that my daughters are used to. So because of our background in that they were used to going to school every day, and I really liked it for them. Like I said, I have daughters, and they, since they were very little, have always been very eager to learn. They were reading at 3 years old, which is very unusual. And I was the mom with the letters when they're 2 years old, trying to teach them the letters. And they've always been that way, where I think sometimes with boys or with a more a physically active learner, you might not have a child who wants to sit and learn to read. So really getting to know your child, that's a different subject. But my daughters love the structure. They love sitting in the desk and getting up and doing their work and having their planners, and they were used to the structure. They always did really, really good, well with their public school or their private school education. They love their teachers. They love the whole thing. The reason why we had to stop was due to current events and COVID and mandates that I wasn't willing to subject my kids to. So we pulled them from that very quickly. And because they're so well adjusted, they adjusted to this new program. We put them in a program called Classical Conversations, which is through a local Christian church in our town. And they go in on Mondays and meet with a tutor and get to have a little bit of time where they actually have that sitting in desks, and there's a small group of kids, and it's really great for me. I try to power through a whole bunch of work while they're doing that. It is parent participation, so I'm there with them, but I can be on my laptop or on my phone and working in the back while I'm there with my kids. But it does take a little pressure off of me 1 day a week. So if you have to work and you're trying to do some things, you might want to look for some support like that, either a tutor or a co-op. Like I said, ours is called Classical Conversations, and through a local Facebook group, we have people who, if you search like Classical Conversations in your city, you can probably find someone who does it locally, or your city name and homeschool group, and you'll find people who you can connect with local to you. There's also another thing that I really like, which is called OutSchool, and it's a website where you can put your kids in a course where it's like $10 a week for 8 weeks, and they can do an art class, or they can do reading tutoring, or Valerie's, my daughter, she's 12, she's a gymnast, and she did a stretching class. And it was just something where I'm like, we can get out of each other's hair for a little bit, and you can go on your laptop in your room and have some time that's just for you and go be taught by somebody other than me. And at my daughter's ages, they're doing a lot of independent study. I'm not sitting there with the whiteboard. And like Jackie said, I did buy all that at first. I had the table and the desks and the glue sticks and the highlighters and all of that. We never used any of that. So when we moved, I actually got rid of the whiteboard. We don't use the whiteboard. But it's whatever you feel comfortable having for your child in your home. There's just so many choices, and there's no wrong way to do it. I feel like every year that I've been doing it, it's evolving into a different kind of program. So while I'm giving you some resources, there are a few other things that if depending on your state, there are some state funding programs, and I have tried these, and now I'm not doing that anymore because I felt like to get the money, which was pretty decent, they gave me like $2,500 a year per kid. So I was getting $5,000 a year that I could use for Amazon supplies, printer, toner. I could go to Staples and put in receipts and they would reimburse me. But I did have to have weekly check-ins, and they didn't support any kind of religious education. So we had to do like 2 different histories because we were doing like Baptist history, and then we were doing like, they wanted more of a non-Christian base, which was totally fine. So we did 2 of them side by side, and we would submit the work for one. But it just got to be to the point where I was like, okay, I'm confident enough now that like it doesn't really cost a lot in supplies for homeschool. I don't really need the funding. And then also that the charter school that we were going through was changing our tutor. And I was like, I just feel like this is the time that I'm going to drop the charter and go through my own route. Now, I did like the charter for the purpose of attendance records. They kept track of all of that and they reported to the state for us. So like Jackie mentioned, hers is like 180 days. I don't even know in California how many days we're required to, but we have to supply attendance records saying that our children are in school. So if you go for California, it's California Department of Education. You can just register your homeschool and you don't have to be with a charter. You don't have to be through a co-op or any kind of organization. You can create your own organization and you are the founder of it and you are the teacher and it's all under your name and you can call it whatever you like. So that's what we're currently doing. And it's, like I said, we've kind of gone from using the charter and then going into doing classical conversations and a little bit of our own. And it's really cool because I've watched my kids watch me become more confident in doing this, where at the beginning I was like, we have no clue what we're doing. And I would drag them to go to these meetings and we would do, the state funding would pay for some lessons. And so we would go do the classes and courses. And that might actually be something that's really helpful to you if you have a lot of children and they want to do a lot of activities. It will pay you to take your kids to music lessons and sports and those things that can add up. The more children you have, those things add up if they want to do extracurriculars. So yeah, that being said, my kids do those programs and I sometimes think it's a little intense. The Classical Conversations is a very education intense program. My girls do well with it. They're probably doing about 4 hours a day of school. And even that, where we're used to 6 to 8 hours in a desk, I feel like 4 hours is a lot for them to be sitting there working. And I've gone back and forth with thinking like, this is a little bit too much with math. Do they really need to do 30 problems of math every day? It's kind of a lot. And that's really just up to you as a parent to decide, let's cut their math in half, or let's sit with them and see where they need help. And if they have this one kind of problem mastered, there's no reason for them to have to do 10 of them every day. Once they've mastered a skill, you can review. So that's, I think, all I had on that topic. There is so many different ways that we could go with this, and we wanted to answer some questions here too. But one of the things I just wanted to encourage any of you with who have young children and you're not sure which way to go with this yet is just buy some flashcards at Target or go online and order some educational tools online and start educating your kids and get in the habit of just doing that as they're 2 and 3 and 4. And depending on their interest level, just start educating them and see where your journey takes you. You don't have to have all of the answers now. Just take it one day at a time, 1 year at a time, and one child at a time in their own, depending on how many you have. It's very specific per child, what they need and how they work. And I'm learning that even with both of my daughters who are very disciplined, they both learn so differently. And I didn't realize that. I just thought of them as, they're just good students and they like the structure and all of that. And the more you get to know your kids in an educational light, you will learn that they really do need different things. And sometimes they need a break. And sometimes we'll skip math and I'll say, let's just do 2 lessons tomorrow because, today's been rough, and we'll struggle and I'll get frustrated. And one of my daughters is like really good at spelling, but she'll miss like 10 on her test. And I'm like, you're not even trying. Like, we're going to skip it this week and we're going to do 2 next week. And, just giving your child grace and giving yourself grace and realizing that not only is this them being educated, but it's a bonding experience too, where you can grow closer as a family and that they can see you, in our imperfections. We're going to all lose our temper and yell at our kids, but they also know that we love them and have grace for them and are going to give them some breaks when it's necessary. So kids can learn through play, through practical lessons, through puzzles. I mean, with my kids, sometimes I'll be like, let's skip the lesson today on math and let's just talk about taxes or budgeting or like something like more practical, because it can be a lot. And you feel like, oh, I don't want to deter from the curriculum. But once you get yourself out of that mindset, it really is empowering to know that you are in charge of your child's education. And I can't do a lot of the math that my daughter in 9th grade can do. Like when she's doing algebra and geometry, these are not things that I can sit down and book smart do, but I work in finance. I do mortgage loans. I work in sales and I work with numbers, and I'm really good with numbers and my calculator and my common sense. So I can bring that to the table with my child. And I really want her to be able to do algebra and biology, but we can go on YouTube and we can find lessons that will help her with that. I don't have to know it all in order to teach my daughter high school math. So I think that's it. Jackie has a few questions we're going to go through, I think. Did I answer all the parts I was supposed to go through? I feel like I rambled, but there's a lot to say.
It was perfect. And I'm just like, I'm so proud of you. I know we're like that, but Heather has come so far with this homeschool thing. And it's funny because that's why I wanted her to talk today. When we go on vacation together, we went on vacation in November, we're going next month. Her daughters bring their school with them and they're like the cutest things in the world. I call them my daughters, and they're there at the island early in the morning and they're doing their work. And then here come my, like the gangster homeschool rebels. Like my sons come walking out, like, what are you doing? Like you're homeschooled, but that is the freedom of homeschool. And this is no judgment, and her daughters are amazing and brilliant and know more math than I know. And like Heather was saying, I think that we are so conditioned to think that we have to have all the answers, or I'm going to tell you guys, I had to retake algebra like 100 times when I took it. And it was a huge source of anxiety and stress in my life when I was growing up. And I'm terrible at math, but I'm really, really good at making money and a lot of other things. Okay. So that's what's cool is like, I'm not giving my husband credit. When I struggle, I'm crying. I'm like, we haven't done times tables yet. And I have a 5th grader. And I know they start that crap probably in like 3rd grade now, but he's taking that on because I'm terrible at math. I can do times tables. But that's the freedom of it. It does not have to look like them in that desk for 3 hours a week of math. It could be when daddy comes home from work, do your times tables. So this whole point of this, guys, and I hope you're getting it now, 52 of you and whoever replays this at another time, is like, Heather and I and whoever else, like, I hope you know my heart. If you're on this call, you probably follow me somewhere. And I know that I can be very aggressive with my views, but I really love everyone. And I want everyone to feel that they can. If this is a call on your heart, don't just like put it away because your mother-in-law says that's stupid and they need socialization, or because the news says that that's, you shouldn't be doing that. You are absolutely equipped to homeschool. And as a community, there are so many options for you, which we're going to go over some of these at the end. I wish I could sit here and answer like everything that everyone's saying in the comments. I'm so glad that people are like talking to each other. This makes me so happy. All right. So first question, and Heather, we'll just both go back and forth with each other. And we've gotten better at cutting each other off. Can homeschool kids play real sports? That was one of the questions. So I have 4 boys, and I'm going to go ahead and start this one. In my state, first of all, yes, they can play sports. I know so many people that the first thing they say to me, these are the top 2 things people say to me when they hear I homeschool. One, they're like, where's your bonnet? No, I'm kidding. They say, oh, I wish I could do that, but I don't have the patience. And I'm like, I don't have the patience either. So I don't have the patience. And the second thing they say to me is, I wish I could do that, but my husband's so into sports. And so I'm here to tell you that yes, your children can play sports if that's high on your list. Like Heather was already talking about her daughter in gymnastics. She's been doing that her whole time in private school and in homeschool. My boys have played every town sport. They did karate, and even as much as if I wanted to, they can take one subject. I'm terrible at math when I felt like it, at a public school in South Carolina or a private school. And as long as they took that one subject, they can play every team sport that school offered. And people don't realize that. Yes. So your children can play sports if that's high on your priority list. I have 4 boys and we were running around like mad people. This one's playing on that field. This one's playing on this field. And for us personally, it started getting way too competitive between the brothers. My first 2 are like Irish twins in grade and age. They're really close in age. And I was like, I'm not fostering this because my oldest is super athletic and the one underneath him is a fisherman. He's not that athletic. And I started seeing his spirit be broken by that. And hey, guess what? We homeschool. So I was like, pulling you out. So they can do that. The other question, I'll have Heather answer this one, was can they do prom and graduation and all the girly things?
Yeah. So also one more thing on the sports. A lot of you, if you're in an area where you might want to be doing like a public school education, you might want to call your local schools and see if you can do a homeschool program through your public school, because a lot of the public schools since COVID, and some of them even before that, are offering you can go to the school, they'll hand you all of the books. It's state funded. You don't have to pay for anything. And they'll put you on a homeschool program. And then if you're doing that program with all of that, you're now able to do all those sports and everything too. Some Christian schools will let you do it. I know one local to us where my daughter does gymnastics. They also have a homeschool option. But if you're involved in any of those, now it opens up your kids to be able to do any of the extracurriculars, which now, they would have the option for like the proms or whatever extracurricular. My daughter is in 9th grade and they're doing something through the Classical Conversations co-op, which is, they're calling it like a murder mystery. I don't know exactly the word they're calling it, but they're getting dressed up like a formal and they're all going down and doing like a murder mystery cruise thing. And the parents are all pitching in and there's like 12 of them that are going to go. So I feel like if your child is interested in that, probably mostly for kids who have been in that system and then pulled out and put in homeschool, they might still be like, well, I was looking forward to having lockers. Well, get them a little locker for home. Like do the things that make them feel like they still get to experience the things they were looking forward to. So if you have a child who you're pulling out during junior high and high school and they were looking forward to like sports or proms or having a locker, those are all things that we can find ways to do it. So like the formal thing, this is one of the parents decided like, let's just do this through the co-op. So if you're doing a co-op, maybe you're the parent who says, let's arrange something like this. So we can all contribute to things like that. I was actually kind of like looking to maybe level up that situation for the kids. I'm like, let's make it really fun and get them a limo or something. And like, not everyone's up for that, but like, it would be kind of cool to be able to get the kids to do things like, not all kids in 9th grade get to do this, but because you're homeschooled, we're going to do some extra stuff for you and make it a positive experience instead of them thinking that they have to make sacrifices because they're homeschooled, because there are so many perks of being able to travel and having flexibility and all of that, that I like to speak that over my kids often. Like, let's talk about all the positives here because we're not missing out on anything. Our life is better since being able to homeschool and being together more. My kids have desks in their bedrooms and they have it set up. It's almost like a dorm room. They have a whole thing with their desks and all of their stuff. And they like that, but they don't always sit at their desks and work. When they go to the co-op, they get to mingle and go hang out with the kids. And it's not a structured desk setting. So those are the perks of that. Through also, Jackie was saying like karate, there's a ton of programs for kids to do that aren't necessarily even like through schools, like gymnastics, karate, a lot of parks and recs have like AYSO and things like that. Not all sports is done through the school and through the competitive system. My daughter does competitive gymnastics. We were actually traveling for some of her stuff recently, and none of that, it's through the school, but it's not only for school students, it's open to outside. So you just have to dig a little bit. And that's where I recommend that you go to Facebook or some of your local communities and just connect with people local to you and see what's out there.
Yeah, people are all saying in the chat, which is 100% accurate. Homeschool, like in our state, we have a homeschool association, which I'll touch on very briefly because I don't want to keep you guys here for 5 years. But they announce, they'll say, we're doing this. And you like, there's so many communities. Like I triple dog dare you to get off of here and Google your state homeschool laws and communities. And you'll be like, whoa, like we're everywhere in all walks of life. We're taking over. Someone did a statistic. I don't want to quote it right now unless Heather starts talking, then I'll go find it. But the amount of homeschooling families is on the rise. And that's not just because of the, you know what stuff we don't need to talk about, but everyone is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because unfortunately, as much as, you know, businesses were lost and all that happened in 2020, we will not go into, but a lot of mothers realized I can do this. Another thing I always was joking with people is that people kept saying to me, I don't know how you do this when they were doing like virtual school. I don't do that. I don't want to listen. The reason why I don't do any of the things anymore is I don't want to answer anyone. But that's what works for us right now. So look in your Facebook groups, homeschool groups have sports, and like Heather's saying, if you can make your own co-op. If you have friends in your neighborhood, you can make your own co-op, okay? And you guys could do the bougie limo thing for your daughters if they like it. For us, my boys have never been in conventional schooling and situations, so they have zero desire for any of that. Like their brothers are their best friends. We travel all the time. They love Heather's daughters like sisters. But for the parents like Heather had, where your children have been in regular school, they do way better with structure, and they do way better. Like my kids don't miss what they never had. You see what I'm saying? Like they're like, prom, what's prom? Anyway, okay. The second question I got, and then this is like a very short list of them, and we'll try to go through really fast, was how do I even start? Get on your computer or your smartphone and start Googling. Okay, that's how you start. And then I put the books in here if you want to scroll back up, and I'll put this in my app too. There's a book called 102 Homeschool Curriculums by, I'm not going to say her name right now, but do it on Amazon. And I think her name's Sally, whatever, the link's in here. And she literally will help you figure out what your homeschool style is. And she asks you questions. If you want a nature-based curriculum, you want Charlotte Mason, you want wild and free curriculum, you want to go on Etsy and you want to start Googling homeschool curriculums, because they have so many printouts that you can keep using. The Good and the Beautiful has a whole nature study. We're going to the Keys next month. Every time we go to the Keys, I have a Good and the Beautiful. This is the other life hack that people don't realize. People think it's expensive. It is not expensive. You keep refunneling and using, and a lot of the stuff is saved on your computer. You just need a printer and a lot of ink. I'm going to bring our wildlife C unit with us, and we keep funneling it and recycling it over and over and over again, because that's how a lot of these curriculums work. Heather touched on this before we got ready for this Zoom, is that if you have, like right now, my 3-year-old is doing kindergarten with my 7-year-old who's struggling with speech impediment stuff, right? Well, what's a grade like that doesn't really exist. All the SKUs are very thin here. History, science, all the electives you can do with all your kids. And then of course, like Heather touched on, if you have someone that's advanced in math, you keep going. I saw someone say in the comments, like her kindergartner doing like 2nd grade or something like that, or her 3-year-old. That's the beauty of homeschool. All right. So can homeschool kids get into colleges? Of course. I'm not going to like give you all the statistics, but all of the colleges out there right now. Hello, Tim Tebow. Can we just talk about him? He's a homeschooled guy. Okay. All of the colleges scout homeschoolers everywhere, every state. They scout them. They have grants for them. They have scholarships for them. Homeschooled children. I'm not putting down the public school system. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I grew up in it. Even private school. Homeschooled kids are far more, they test higher on all those tests that I don't give my kids. I don't have to in South Carolina. Some states require them, the state standardized tests. SATs, standardized testing, homeschoolers are off the charts, because think about it. They're able to keep going if they need to keep going, or slow down if they need a little extra help. And that's the beauty of it. All right. Someone said my 9-year-old dyslexic can't read yet. Should I be stressed? No. Coming from a stressed homeschool mom with a dyslexic 9-year-old. No, so you got to not have the mom guilt. And I will tell you right now, you just have to pray and keep just showing up with your child every single day. I get him on reading eggs every single day, because spelling is hard and he moves the letters around. And just, I have to pray and oil up before every meeting with this one child of mine with this. And Heather knows, and Sean knows if he's listening, that like he breaks me, but it's good for my character too. Honestly, going back to the reading thing, especially with boys, I will say, now he's 11. I took literally 9 months off when I was pregnant with Luke. And all I did was read to him, and we watched documentaries. He was like really struggling with reading. And they actually, in the co-op, was like, if his brother wasn't coming up under him, we would have them repeat. And my husband's like, there's not grades in homeschool. What are you talking about repeat? And I was like, I'm failing. And when we took the 9 months off, guess who learned how to fluently read perfectly? That kid. I think sometimes with the dyslexic mom who's on this, or maybe you're going to replay this, it's our own pressure we're putting on ourselves, and then we're giving it to our children. And so just take a deep breath, oil up, pray, meditate, whatever your thing is, and just be consistently having that child in a book or working on reading eggs. I'm telling you, this has been game changer for me personally, because it goes up to the age of 12 and it does placement tests for your kids. And then it literally, I have John, Mark, Luke, and James, and they all just like click their thing. They put on headphones, and I'll work with another kid in the room, or I'll work on my computer, because yes, I work too while I do it. And it just, it's been so freeing. So reading eggs, they do a free trial. It goes up to the age of 12 and has math on it. Just saying. Okay. Okay, time management, 3 kids, 3 different ages. It's going to look different at every different stage that you're in. When Luke was an infant, I would only homeschool when he was napping or breastfeeding, because that's when he was quiet. If like sometimes it's complete and utter chaos, and my 11-year-old will literally take his books and go upstairs in his room. He's like, I'm not doing this right now. Again, homeschool freedom, like Heather was saying, her daughter sometimes go in the room. The older boys, my 11 and my 9-year-old, though, with the dyslexia, I don't know if listening, they don't need as much of me hovering. And once they get to like 11, 12, 13, like it's pretty much self-led. Another thing, we love to do documentaries. Like I love to sit and go and find, Roswell documentaries and all the things that are interesting to me, and like really teaching my children to just like critically think and question things, not in a paranoid way. I also love that about homeschool too. So as far as the time management thing, I mean, you're just going to have to figure out what works for your family. I'm not against doing it when my husband's home. Like if we've had a long day, I'll do it when he gets home, and I'll say, listen, we need to do spelling over here. Like, it's dark out. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You were sleeping when those kids next door went on the bus. Like, let's go. Come on. So anyway, I hope that helps you with that question.
Since I'm a very organized mom, I'm going to say be okay with a little bit of chaos. Like let the dishes pile in the sink if you have to, and like let some of that go. Because that's just one of the things that doesn't really matter. And you have to let something go. We only have so much to give during the day. And if you're trying to work and breastfeed and train a child up in spelling, and then you have this other one that's potty training, and then you have dishes and you have to do lunch, maybe you just make lunch and leave the mess. And then you focus on the kids now, and like, just really let that happen. Like let your house just become a disaster. And that was a hard thing for me, because I used to leave and come home and it was always clean. But now that if you're making the transition, for those of you who are just always doing it, you won't have this struggle. But the transition of living in your home and actually like making your food and eating there, because normally we pack it and leave and go eat in our desks at work and at school. When your house is messy, it just means that you're living in it, and that's okay. And so I will just kind of let things be sometime, and then assign the kids chores and let them, that can be part of homeschool, is that they have responsibilities, because learning to clean and learning to do things is giving them those life skills too that they wouldn't get if they were in a classroom.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that too. And again, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer than an hour, so I'm trying to close this off. But you're still here, so I'm glad. The thing is too, is like when you ask your kids, like, come help me in the kitchen, and maybe you have 3 really little ones right now, so you're like, that's not for 20 years. It's going to happen before you know it. And they watch us and they're learning. Like home ec is, Yanni, make your brother an egg, okay? And my 11-year-old makes the other one an egg. Have we had a fire? Yes. And we learned how to put it out in the kitchen. Homeschool, everything is homeschool. Like when I cut my pinky thing off, I'm like, okay, come on, everyone, we're doing this right now. We're going to learn about the skin, layers. And I know that sounds crazy, but guys, your children are watching. And that's what I'm talking about when I talked about the dyslexic thing. They're feeding off of me when I'm frustrated, when whatever's going on. That's the days where, like Heather was saying, I'm just like, I throw in the towel. And it's not like I hate you kids. I just don't like you, or me for that matter. We're going to try again tomorrow. Kids are so resilient and forgiving. And I honestly will tell you this too. And I'm sure if anyone in here has homeschool kids, is like, my boys are the closest brothers I have ever met. Do they fight? Yes. Do they wrestle? Of course. Does James have a gash around his eye right now from Luke? Absolutely. But that's another thing that gives me so much like peace in my heart when I feel like I'm failing, is I'm not trying to compare ever to anyone else, but whenever I'm around children that are apart, think about it. If you're putting your kids from 5 and up in separate classrooms, and it's like, how much time are we really having with our children? How much time are they with their siblings? And then they're gone, guys, just gone. Not gone, but they are gone, right? And so like Heather's saying, with the mess, like try to focus on the fact that we're going to miss that one day. Try to focus on the one day it's going to be quiet. One day you might actually have like makeup on when your husband gets home. Like me and Heather were laughing at each other. I was in a robe today. My hair was like this. My sink was full. And I was like, I've got it together and I'm going to lead a homeschool Zoom. But, my husband and I, we've had a lot of growth in that. And, there's always going to be some sort of sacrifice. It might be dirty floors, or it might be you're in a robe till 7 o'clock, but it's worth it. And I just want to really encourage you on that. So what programs do I use really fast? ABC Mouse, Tuttle Twins, The Good and the Beautiful, Reading Eggs. I keep talking about it. It's not sponsored. Khan Academy is free. There are so many free homeschool resources. Google it. Free homeschool resources. It's like millions of them. If you want to be bougie, you can. Do you need to get the whole box curriculum? No. In fact, I hated it when I did it, but I did it for a little bit. So yeah. What age did I start? With my oldest, I started him at 6, and then it's gotten progressively older and older as I've had more children, because I know them best. Some of y'all on here said my 3-year-old was ready. I have my 3-year-old doing kindergarten too. He's so brilliant and loves it and wants to be like his older brothers, which is normal, right? But I'm obviously not going to like give him a freaking standardized test, but he probably will read way before 7 years old because he's doing it right now. But like my Jamie is my creative muse, and he is doing kindergarten right now at 7, but he's really advanced in art and other areas. And so just like take off the pressure. Like guys, when we do butterfly units, we order the caterpillars off Amazon, and every year, even my 11-year-old, they cannot, their mind is blown. They're like, we're doing it again. And every year we do the same one and it doesn't change, but it's like the lessons that come from that butterfly unit study that I keep recycling over and over and over. I know that these are like, we call them core memories from that movie, that Disney movie, all the time. Like it's free, it's freedom. Like Heather and I have a plan that her daughter is going to work with James in his reading because he's on my wit's end in my patience, and I'm struggling with him and he's like right there. But like, that's what you can do. You can have your friends, like lean on your friends. Heather's daughter is going to Zoom him or FaceTime him, and they're going to get together and help each other. Like you're not alone in this. And I just want you guys to really, really like understand that and know, like, if you're here right now, you can homeschool. Okay. I am not a teacher, and Heather is not a teacher, and we are doing it and we love it, and it's hard, but it's amazing. Nature-based curriculum is, I would say, Charlotte Mason, someone asked me, and then The Good and the Beautiful has nature kits, but you could also go on like Etsy. I would Google that too. The Wild and Free Homeschool method is very nature-based, very, I can't think of the word right now. What's the preschool that's all hands-on? Montessori. It's very like that. So if you're into that, The Good and the Beautiful and Charlotte Mason. Charlotte Mason is a method of a woman who was literally educating all of our presidents back in the day. And she didn't start any sit-down any schooling with anyone until they were 7 and above. So go back to that book I mentioned, and I'll link this again before we get off, and figure out what is your homeschool, like what's going to be your homeschool thing. Do you like to be more like wild and free, or do you like the you know, Heather school, or maybe you like a mix of the both? And the thing is some days Heather is wild and free, and some days I'm a little more structured because I got to get this done. And that is the freedom of this, and that is homeschool in a nutshell, honestly. So I think, oh, what do I think about unschooling was the last question that I took out. And then someone also asked me if you don't have a supportive spouse. Supportive spouse, I cannot answer that, but I know that my friend Heather here doesn't have a spouse and she does it. So that would be my answer. If your husband, figure out why they're not supportive of it. Is it from what the news said or an article? Is it because they want them to be able to be socialized? So show them some cool kids that are homeschooled. If it's sports, they can play sports. Figure out what is the reason for the spouse not being on board, and see if you can, you know, break that stigma. And
or if there's something that's like really important to your spouse that they're like, I really want the child to have this, you can do any of that within homeschool. So just figure out what is the importance there, and it's all compromise. And I'm going to say that just because I'm doing it with my ex-husband, and there's some things that are important to him. And any of you here who are having disagreements with your spouse that you live with, trust me, I have disagreements with my ex that I don't live with. It's just like, we're here because our goal is our children, and you and your husband have that same goal too, is just to get your children educated the best way possible. And you are the best for that. You are the best person for the job. So you guys coming to any kind of agreement or compromise on your values there, sit down and have those hard talks, because it's worth it.
Yeah. And if you guys want to meet like once a month and we can just talk homeschool, like let's do it. Just let me know. I just wanted to be able to show up for you guys in this way. I'm actually going to probably, like Heather and I have talked about doing this on all different topics that all pertain to freedom, because we want to be free. Okay. I think that's it. One more thing, obviously, if you know what this is, I have a code for you guys if you want to shop my merch when you get off here. That's not why I did this, clearly. Homeschool 15 for my shop. If you guys want to shop anything for the next week, just for everyone that showed up here, Homeschool 15, it'll get you 15% off. I'm going to put this in my app now, and I'll have it saved in a drive. So next time someone asks me a homeschool question, I'm gonna be like, yo, replay this soon. And if you have any more questions or any other needs that you'd like met, please message me on Facebook, follow Heather, write down your handle in there.
Yeah, and if you guys have more questions, send Jackie messages through her page and we'll save them for next time. If you guys want us to do this monthly, we're passionate about it and we love doing it. Maybe we'll find another one of you who has experience and bring in another speaker. So we'll keep this going because I think this community, the world is going more this way, and we're here to give you guys the tools that you need for it. And we don't know it all, clearly. So
obviously not. No. Nicole said in the app, I'm going to be putting it in the group that's like for everyone. So I have protected groups for people on my oil team, but this will be going just in the Raising Cubs portion. So anyone can just replay it. Okay. All right. I put the links there again. Again, you can use Homeschool 15 if you want to shop anything in my store. I hope you guys feel empowered tonight. Y'all are homeschooling gangsters. Okay. All right. I'm gonna make a shirt that says that. All right. See you guys again. Thank you for coming.